Back on a Friday. Begun. Rob Ellis hanging out with you. Sports Take. Hope you're doing well out there. Smash that like if you could. Hey, non-sports, but interesting, Derek.
Yeah.
Las Vegas police have arrested a man on suspicion of murder in the 1996 drive-by shooting of Tupac Shakur, according to the Associated Press.
What?
27 years later. Yeah.
So they
never caught whoever killed him, whoever killed Biggie, but they have arrested somebody in Tupac's shooting and killing.
Somebody must have finally dimed out somebody.
I don't know. That's crazy.
That
is crazy.
Hey, speaking of crazy, I just saw the report that they've just issued weather emergency in the state of New York. Torrential rain is flooding areas and possibly people may have to be evacuated and stuff in certain areas.
Oh, man.
Man, how did we miss that deluge here?
Yeah, we got anybody in our, listening audience here who's there, please be careful. Please be careful. The source, Peter, is the Associated Press is reporting it.
And Timothy Walker saying the guy was bragging about it?
Yeah, I don't know. I know no details. That's all I know is the Associated Press is reporting that there's been an arrest made. That's all I have right now.
Come on, Twiz. Twiz said Puffy had him whacked. Come on, Twiz.
We're gonna get into the whole East Coast, West Coast thing now. Is that what we're gonna do?
Come on, Twiz.
I'm not giving you any conspiracy theories. I'm just telling you what's being reported right now. But that is wild. 27 years later, man.
Dude, you know what though? Rob, if you watch some of these channels like Investigation TV and stuff like that,
which I love, by the way.
We see stories like this all the time now about cases that were closed have been reopened like 20, 30 years.
Cold cases with DNA is a game changer in a lot of
and people have been tracked down and you find out who did certain things that were buried for 30 years. And hey, look, if you're dumb, if there is some truth to the fact that this dude was bragging about, how dumb can you be?
Yeah,
you get away with this for 27 years. Now you beating your chest about you took out somebody, especially a prominent entertainer like Tupac. Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on, man. I shouldn't say how dumb can you be, because let's face it, when you look at social media daily, you can ask that question 50 times a day on a lot of topics.
Yeah, the limits of stupidity get tested on a minutely basis. Is that a word?
You can do a litmus test on stupidity.
Yes,
really good.
You are correct, sir. All right, so we get any more on that, we'll pass it along. But all right, so last year, Derek, the team split, Philadelphia and Washington.
Yep.
All right, so first game of the season, which was week 3 that they played, the Eagles won at Washington 24-8. It was really not even that close. Jalen Hurts had a big game, 22 of 35, 340 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, a 123.5 passer rating. And it really wasn't a game that he rattled. I mean, he ran 9 times for 20 yards. I think a lot of it was just scrambles. It didn't feel like there was a lot of RPO, called runs and that kind of stuff. He did get sacked 3 times. Devontae Smith had a big game, 8 catches, 169 yards and a touchdown.
Whoa.
A.J. Brown was solid, 5 for 85. The Eagles in the game got 9 sacks on Carson Wentz. Brandon Graham had 2.5. Hassan Reddick had 1.5. Mm-hmm. Fletcher Cox 1.5. Josh Sweat 1.5. The others were Hargrave and I think Kaiser White, guys who aren't here.
Yeah.
Carson, not that it really matters, but 25 of 43, 211 yards, 0 touchdowns, no interceptions, 9 sacks, and a 71 passer rating. They got after him all day. You saw the tendency that he has to hold on to the ball too long, which is a major problem, maybe one of the reasons why he's not in the league right now. But game 1, the Eagles had no problems with them. They put him away, pretty handily in that one.
Yeah, Washington could virtually do nothing. And it got to a certain point. Well, first of all, Carson Wentz was under duress right from his very first snap. It got so bad for him. There were times when he would duck and tense up, even when he had an extra second or two to try to throw the ball. Mm-hmm. When he started feeling the pressure, he would start to curl up, which blew up plays for him as well. But that was such a lopsided game. Jalen Hurts was meticulous in that game,
Mm-hmm.
and didn't have to use his, like you said, didn't have to use his legs as much because he was killing them through the air. Eagles didn't rush for a lot of yards that game, something like 72 yards. They didn't have to. They didn't need to in that game. I mean, everything else worked so well. It was like, if I was Eagles, I was like, man, when is this game over? I'm tired of this. Yeah, the total yards was 400 to 240.
Right.
There was only one turnover in the game, and it was the interception thrown by Wentz, I believe. Yeah, the interception by Wentz. Time it's funny because when you look at the overall stats, you know, the Eagles had 21 first downs, Washington had 20. Time of possession, Washington had the ball 32-54, Eagles 27-06.
Right.
Penalty for a division game, penalties were low. Eagles had 5 penalties for 52 yards, Washington 4 for 48. And see the amount of plays that were run, that's always a big factor. The plays were 74-68 in favor of Washington. So it was just a matter of the Eagles capitalizing on their opportunities and Washington just self-destructing. Carson Wentz self-destructing. Everything that you could do wrong that fell short of putting the ball in the end zone is what Washington did in that game.
Right. No question. All right. So that was game one. And that was when the Eagles, Derek, were rolling. They were on a roll. So they enter the game against Washington week 10 at the Link at 8-0. So they're undefeated at that point. There's whispers of the Miami Dolphins, you know, the whole thing. So they go into that game. Eagles end up losing 32-21.
Yep.
In that game. So a couple things. Hurts, very pedestrian passing numbers. 17 of 26, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns, had an interception, was sacked once. They did a very good job on the Eagles receivers in this game too.
Yep.
Devontae Smith, 6 catches, 39 yards, did have a touchdown. A.J. Brown, 1 catch, 7 yards. That was it. That was it.
Yeah, well, you didn't see him pounding on the sideline. I'm sure.
No, you didn't. There was none of that. So Eagles are down 26-21, fourth quarter.
Yep.
Jalen connects with Quez Watkins on a 52-yarder, and it appeared like the Eagles were about to go up, you know, either 28-26 or 29-26, depending on if they were going to go for 2 there. But Quez, unforced error, fumbles. Washington recovers, you know, and then they end up putting some points on the board, which, you know, gave them a little bit of distance, a little breathing room in the game. So 2 things stood out in that second matchup. McLaurin had a good game, 8 catches, 128 yards, but Washington ran the ball very successfully, 152 yards.
Woo!
Yeah, which, Derek, resulted in this. Time of possession in this game?
Yes.
Washington 40-24, Eagles 19-36. I mean, that is crazy. That's more than double. And Eagles turned it over 4 times.
See, the 4 turnovers were directly responsible for Washington have that lopsided margin in time of possession because the Eagles kept shooting themselves in the foot time and time again. And yet, even with the lopsided numbers like that, the Eagles still had a chance to win that game if a few things had gone their way. I mean, Washington ran the ball 49 times in that game. 49 times. I don't think anybody else came close to running it that many times on the Eagles last season, to be honest. You know, and Washington didn't just blow them out of the water. Washington only had 330 yards of offense, again, because they had short fields. You know, Eagles had 264 yards in that game. Washington ran 81 plays to the Eagles 47 in that game.
Jeez.
81 plays in the game. Washington even had 2 turnovers to the Eagles 4. But and again, in the red zone, the Eagles were 3 for 3 in the red zone. Washington was 2 for 3. So the Eagles could have won that game. But you know what, Rob? It happens all the time in the NFL. I don't care how good you are. You can't play the perfect game 17 games. Physically, it just doesn't happen.
Right.
You know, you're going to have flaws. And Washington caught them at the right time. Like I said, it was a perfect storm. They got the turnovers. They capitalized on a mistake. They controlled the clock because the running game was so efficient against this Eagles team. And then, of course, the Eagles made some glaring gaffes. Quez fumbles the ball. Brandon Graham makes the wrong decision at the wrong time.
Goddard fumbled on the face mask that wasn't called.
Yep. You know, and everything added up to the Eagles losing their first game. Yeah. It happens. I hate to say it, it does happen, but maybe that was a wake-up call the Eagles needed, because after that, they went on a roll until Jalen got hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was the only loss they had without Jalen Hurts.
Yes.
Or with Jalen Hurts. The other two losses were Gardner Minshew. I mean, he's 21-1 in his last 22 starts.
That's right.
So, there's significance attached to that game. I think the big question is, Derek, with the improvement the Eagles made on the interior with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis getting better, will Washington be able to run? Because here's what I think. I think Eric Bieniemy and Ron Rivera and the decision makers will come out and try to run early.
Yep.
Now, maybe a situation where it looks like last week and you can't run on them, and then you got to go to a plan B. But if I'm them, I'm trying to model what I did last year and keep the Eagles' offense off the field. I think it's a smart, sound way to go. The question is, can you do it against these dudes, that are now playing for the Eagles?
You cannot afford Washington with the weakness of their offensive line, the inexperience of the quarterback, cannot afford to put up a ball 50 times through the air against this Eagles front, especially against those D tackles collapse in the middle of the pocket and forcing them continuously out of the pocket. You have to try to establish some type of balance against this Eagles defense. I don't think Washington can do it. I don't think they can do it because of their offensive line. You're not running up the middle. And I don't know if their backs, they have good backs. And don't get me wrong, they have good backs. I don't think their backs are quick enough to get on the perimeter against this Eagles defense. I really don't. Which means you're a one-dimensional offense now. And you're going to be playing from behind. So you're going to have to throw the ball more to try to get back in the game. So I think all of that stuff adds up in favor of the Eagles. Washington just doesn't have the personnel. And here's the team. I'm shocked. We had Brian Mitchell on yesterday. I'm shocked they didn't address the offensive line issues better. When you consider the talent they let get out of here, and Trent Williams and Brandon Scherf and all these guys, they had a solid offensive line when they had those guys. Since those guys have been gone, it's been a mess along the Washington offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And after seeing what Buffalo did to them, Sam Howell, you may have to increase your insurance policy, dude. You may need to increase your life insurance policy for this game.
Well, that's it. I mean, to me, there's the game, right? I mean, there's the game. If they can't establish the run, if they can't do their keep away routine, if they make Howell and the offense become one-dimensional and he's dropping back a ton,
yep,
that's how this becomes something that gets out of hand. I think that's how the Eagles roll them, if that's the case, because we saw it last week. They weren't able to protect him to the tune of 9 sacks, and he had 4 interceptions. That we hadn't seen that the first 2 games. He had been protected pretty well. He did a decent job taking care of the ball, but he looked like a young guy last week, and the Eagles have the capability of doing the same exact thing.
If Howell cannot get in a rhythm in the passing game, if the offensive line cannot give him time to look down the field at not just one, but at least his second option in his progression, they don't stand a prayer.
Yeah.
And those are big ifs. I don't think any way, shape, or form Washington's line can stand up to this front. Mm-hmm. I really don't.
Yeah.
And that's a problem, because Sam Howell's going to have to move a lot to throw the football. And the Eagles are going to catch him coming around the edge eventually. They're going to catch him.
Yeah.
And Reddick now with that cast off, I expect to see the old Hassan Reddick. I'd be surprised if the Eagles get 6-7 sacks. I'd be surprised if he doesn't have 2, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. I'd be extremely surprised if 2 of them are not attached to his name. And he's chomping at the bit because he has none. He has 1 tackle and nothing else for 3 games?
Super quiet.
Because he can't use that other hand. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah. He's clearly at least I think there's going to be a big difference in his play having that thing off, and JM makes a good point. Wiley, who was one of Kansas City's offensive linemen who did a really good job last year.
Yeah.
Maybe Reddick wants a little payback on him, on dry conditions here on the Lincoln Financial Field turf. We'll see what ends up happening there. But it is interesting to look back at these games, because I get it. Your initial reaction is going to be Carson Wentz was playing, Taylor Heineke's playing in the second game. What are we doing here?
Yep.
But there are little tendencies, I think the Eagles defense is so improved against the run because last year it was like 17th or something like that. Very middling.
Yeah.
Now they're number one by a big distance.
Absolutely. And I don't see it getting any better for anybody in the near future. You know, as long as these young guys can stay healthy, that's the key. If they can stay healthy, they are immovable objects in the middle of that defense. And all of a sudden, your edge players can crash. Your linebackers can come up and fill gaps. Your back end can come down in the box and fill gaps better. They can shoot gaps with cleaner pockets.
Mm-hmm.
Who's this? It says Reddick is overrated. Okay. All right.
Yep. 16 sacks last year.
Yeah. Okay. 16 sacks overrated. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, back to what we were talking about. Just the talent level alone, Rob, is so vastly different between these two. Now, I will say this. Terry McLaurin is a heck of a receiver.
He is.
Unfortunately for Terry McLaurin, he's got a rookie throwing to him.
Yep.
He's got inexperience throwing to him. And I guarantee you, they're going to play tight coverage on Terry. There's no question. Now, can Johan Dotson win his battles on the other side? I don't know. If Bradbury's on the outside playing Dotson, I don't think so, to be honest. Because Bradbury's that long, lean guy who can cover those bigger receivers. You know, so I don't think there's a win-win unless you get a mismatch with Curtis Samuel in the middle on a linebacker, whoever they're playing, or maybe they'll play 5 DBs.
Maybe
come down.
That's what I mean. Teams have been just basically going light in the box and then heavy on the back end to stop Hurts, which has allowed the Eagles' run game to be as effective as it is. Not that it wouldn't be good anyway, but the fact that they are lighter up front helps. Yeah.
No question about it. I would love to be the fly on the wall in terms of what Ron Rivera has been harping at these guys all week, and what Eric Bieniemy is trying to come up to calm him down, calm Howell down, and to get better performance out of that offensive line. If I'm Washington offensive line coach, if this keeps up, you're gonna be replaced, man, before the season's over. I mean, seriously, there's got to be some kind of tactics you can teach these guys to slow a pass rush down. You got to be able to, because man on man, you're not winning many battles, and especially not against this Eagles front this week.
Yeah, and you know, Washington is an interesting team in that Rivera's on, if not a hot seat, a warm seat. He was inherited by the owner. They brought in Bieniemy, who very well could slide into that position.
Yeah,
and or just bring in somebody else new who the owner wants or whatever. So he's in a kind of precarious spot. Like they have to get to the playoffs this year, in my opinion, or he's gone.
I don't think it's going to happen. But if they went 10-7, I think it saves his job.
Do you? I think he has to get in.
I think it saves his job because the buffer will be, we have a young quarterback who's progressing in the right direction. You know, he struggled early on, but look at how he came on in the latter part of the season. Let's keep Rivera one more year and bring this coaching staff back. I believe if they went the very minimum 10-7, which I don't think will happen, that's the only way he can save his job, to be honest.
I guess. I mean, look, he's been under it. It's tough. It doesn't matter ultimately. It's about the results. But you know, when you're owner and you're in such dysfunction that you were in with Daniel Snyder for as long as he was, it's a tough spot. But the bottom line is the results, man. And last year, 3 out of the 4 in that division went to the playoffs, and you weren't one of them. So that is not helping his case.
Yeah, the only time he went to the playoffs was his first year, and I believe he had a losing record his first year and won the division.
Yeah, he got very fortunate. It was a bad year. Yeah, it was a bad year. Wasn't that the last year of? Was that the last year of Doug? It had to have been, because the Eagles made the playoffs in the year before. So they won it in 17, went to the playoffs in 18, lost to the Saints. Right? 19, things went awry. I think so. Well, Nick comes in at 21, right? Yeah, Nick comes in 21. So anyway, whatever. You get the point of this. Speaking of, defense. Jack Del Rio said he's the latest to jump into this. The tush push should be banned. He said it's not a football play, it's a rugby play. And he said,
yeah, because he's got to defend against it this week.
Well, he did acknowledge that the Eagles run it better than anybody else. He said, but that doesn't mean it should be in the league. So good. I like that kind of. Just keep bringing it up. Keep talking about it. I like it.
Look, Rob, I'm telling you, man, enough people are going to keep crying foul to the point I'd be shocked if it's not eliminated at the owners' meetings next off-season meeting in 2024. You got more and more people now talking about this. And you know, every Eagles opponent coaching staff is going to be talking about this.
Yep.
You know, so enjoy it while you can, folks, because I guarantee you there's going to be alterations to it. There's no question about that.
Yeah, I don't even know. I think one of two things happen. I think either it's banned entirely, it's out, or they get real specific that you can't be touched from behind on it.
Yeah.
In other words, it just turns into a good old-fashioned quarterback sneak. And there's nothing else at play. Nobody's pushing, nobody's launching you, nobody's throwing you, any of those kind of things. That's what I think it turns into.
Well, if you go back and look at that similar play, even when Brady was running it, there was always somebody who got behind him and gave him a little extra shove.
Yep.
Once he hit that line of scrimmage. Nobody said anything about it then. In the Brady era, now all of a sudden it's a hot topic. It's not a football look. You know, it's an illegal formation, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, and like I told you jokingly earlier this week, because it's attached to Philadelphia, there will be some changes to it because of Philadelphia.
I think you're right.
This disdain for Philadelphia in sports across the board is legendary in this region.
Well, and I don't think, like you said, I don't think it's coincidence. I would guess like every team the Eagles play, if it's brought up and the person's asked about it, whether it's a defensive coordinator or the head coach, they're gonna push back against it because they know the Eagles do it so well. It's a winning move by them to get this out of the league. It's the best thing that could happen to them. Is to not have to deal with it anymore if you're the Eagles. All right, let's get a timeout. Let's come back and we're going to look at some of the key matchups of the present day. Eagles D-line versus Washington's O-line. Eagles O-line versus Washington. Eagles banged up secondary against the Washington receivers, etc. We'll get into all those kind of things. I'll give you Sam Howell's numbers. I'll give you the running backs, the receivers, the overall team numbers of Washington. We'll do all those kind of things when we get back. Don't go anywhere. He's Derek Gunn. I am Rob Ellis. We're Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. All right, let's talk about Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group, because finding the right person to trust with your finances can be a challenge, can be a scary proposition. Well, I'm going to have you skip over the middleman and all the mistakes that I made before I found Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group. Whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review, you might have a small business and you need help with your employee benefits. That's another resource that Jim can help you with. I know I personally entrusted my IRA, my 401k rollover with Jim, and it was the best thing that I ever did. Give him a call right now, 610-996-4751, 610-996-4751. You can also email him as well, Murray, MURRAY, .Jim@principal.com. That's Murray.Jim@principal.com.